We should all be upset that the Chicago Bears lost to the Green Bay Packers, especially like that. But it's more important that Caleb Williams played a lot better, especially in the clutch, in the fourth quarter, with the game on the line.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll for free. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. On the show today, we look back at another tough Chicago Bears loss with about as bright of a silver lining as you could hope for. A nice return to form for Caleb Williams in a new-look Chicago Bears offense that feels like it rediscovered some things and maybe even found a few new things along the way to help achieve what's most important for the Bears team this year. More important than wins and losses are the quarterback's development, and that's ultimately where we can hang our hat after a game like this. But we'll also look at the blocked field goal and everything that goes around that and why complaining about the referees is not directing your anger in the right direction here. And then we'll discuss whether this sort of progress is sustainable, or is this just kind of a one game you get hyped up because it's the Packers, and also one game after firing your coordinator, everyone is banding together, and then we're just going to get back to the same old after that one game bump. But it feels like more than a one game bump, at least for Caleb Williams specifically, right? He was able to do some things in this game that feel more important than the result and then anything else that really happened in between four quarters. Like when you think about it, like, okay, if you have to lose this game to the Packers, let's say, take out the possibility of a win. If I said, hey, you're going to lose to the Packers, what's the best way to lose to the Packers in this game? It's Caleb Williams has a great game, but they still come up a little bit short, and it's not his fault that they come up short. Like ultimately, that this is about as like, if obviously winning is what you want. You always want to win, especially against the Green Bay Packers. But if you had to pick the way to lose, this feels about like the best way to lose, about the most ideal way to lose, because you got to see your quarterback be more decisive, look more comfortable, more confident in leading this offense, not being so afraid to take checkdowns and take what the defense is giving him and stack up progress and not have to feel like you're getting into third and long every other drive and you can never get any sort of rhythm going here. I think some of it had to do with him finding the success with his legs, scrambling, building some confidence, just getting the offense moving in a positive direction there helped open some things up for them. So you're not going 3 and out, and then trying to press and do too much. Like the Bears only punted twice in this game. And I think that allowed Caleb Williams to settle in a little bit more and feel confident like he could drive this team down the field, not at will, but, at any given moment, he always had it within him here. But I think in particular, what he did on that last drive of the game is the most important part. I mean, big picture here, Caleb Williams put some real fear into the heart of the Green Bay Packers and their fan base. That, I think there had been a feeling after, what has it been, 10 in a row or whatever the Packers have won, that like, they almost like they never have to worry about the Bears right now. After a couple games of Justin Fields, they felt like, all right, Fields isn't going to beat the Packers. Like they weren't scared of Justin Fields. He couldn't throw or whatever. All he was going to do was run, but Justin Fields wasn't going to lead the Bears to a Packers win. And, same thing with Mitch Trubisky or whatever, right? Like I think Packers fans had kind of gotten into this rhythm of like, oh, Bears quarterbacks are bad, so we don't really have to fear them in these games. But Caleb Williams put the fear in them. That's for sure. Every Packers fan was clenching their seat. They were tight. They thought they were going to lose that game. every Packers fan thought, oh crap, this rookie quarterback just put together a huge game-winning drive and we're screwed. And, they were losing at halftime, right? Like, I think this puts some real fear in Green Bay so that even though the Packers won, they know they kind of got lucky. More than kind of. They know they got lucky on a win there. They didn't really, deserve to win, quote unquote, at the end. And so round 2 in week 18, there's going to be some doubt and some fear in the back of their minds that, oh crap, maybe we got to be ready for Caleb Williams. Maybe he's going to drive down and score us again. Like, even if the Bears offense struggles again between now and then, you were just coming off your worst offensive game last week against the Patriots to this. Like, you can't get any lower than they were, and they still put up this kind of performance against Green Bay. So even if week 18, the Bears are struggling, there's still some fear that, hey, he could do it again against us because he did it against, them. Us as in, if I'm a Packers fan being scared of Caleb Williams, he can do it against us. He can do it against them at any given point in the season. And especially the value of Caleb Williams. When you have a quarterback who gives you faith and hope on 3rd and 19 in the fourth quarter when you're trailing by 1. How many quarterbacks are there in the NFL that when you have 3rd and 19 in the fourth quarter trailing by 1, that you're like, you know what? This kid's got it. Our guy's got it. You've got faith that he can put this team in a position to win. Obviously, he doesn't convert all 19 yards in the third down, but follows it up with a 4th and 2 where he makes a beautiful throw to Rome Odunze to keep the drive alive and drive down and get into field goal range. Like, he made the most clutch plays in the most difficult situations in the biggest game of the season. And that's all you're looking for from your number 1 overall pick quarterback. That's what every team is looking for when they draft a quarterback. You're trying to find a guy who can do that. And it's exactly what Caleb Williams did against the Green Bay Packers. And that's more important than the win or the loss. It's seeing your quarterback do the most valuable thing that a quarterback can do. That's what excites me about this game, and where I certainly don't want to skip over the upset feeling, right? Like, of course, that sucked. And we're all tired of watching this team lose to the Green Bay Packers. But seeing Caleb Williams make those plays on that last drive, particularly the 3rd and 19 and the 4th and 2, but there were other plays earlier in the game too. Like, he had a much better game, but to make those plays and to feel like, wow, your quarterback gives you a chance on 3rd and 19 to convert that down in distance on 4th and 2 is not something I felt like we had with Justin Fields or Mitch Trubisky. Maybe occasionally Jay Cutler could pull one out of his butt, but that's not something we really had faith in a Bears quarterback. And maybe you didn't. And I don't know that I did when 3rd and 19 started, but when you see him make those plays, you're like, oh, he can do it. We have one of those quarterbacks that can do it. Like, that's the pot of gold. Like, that's what you're looking for. And obviously there's more to playing quarterback than 2 plays in the fourth quarter, and he still needs to keep developing and getting better, but those are the goods right there. That's why you took him number 1 overall in the draft, is those moments right there. That playmaking ability is kind of all Caleb Williams at that point. The receivers and the offensive line, the running backs and stuff, that's a big part of the, quarters 1 through 3.5 and parts of the fourth quarter there. But when push comes to shove in the end of the fourth quarter, you need your quarterback to make a play. How many quarterbacks can make that play? Not very many. And Caleb Williams did. And that's the big takeaway for me from this game. Win, loss, loss sucks, yes. But more importantly, Caleb made that play. Feels like we're spending too much time, not right now, but the Bears fans are spending too much time on the blocked kick. And I think certainly the referees have been a focus here because the long snapper got pushed a little bit and you're not supposed to do that and stuff. But we're missing the point here if we're going to complain about the officials not calling a flag on the field goal here when there's a couple of bigger issues underlying the blocked field goal beyond just, okay, a missed call on the last play of the game. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into the field goal and how Green Bay saw a weakness, and that feels like a much bigger issue than refereeing, next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Hillsdale College. Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free online courses. That's right, no cost, totally free online courses to help you continue your education or just, pique your curiosity and enjoy learning. I mean, learning is fun, especially when you don't have to do it for grades, but you can do it on your own for fun. And they got a bunch of great courses you can try out at Hillsdale, including cool history courses like the rise and fall of the Roman Republic. They've got a classical music course. They've got economics courses, even a documentary style courses. It's great. And they're all self-paced, so that you can start whenever you want, tune in wherever you are, and go deeper then with readings, quizzes, and discussions, or you can just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Locked On Bears is also brought to you by PrizePicks, the better way to play daily fantasy sports because PrizePicks puts you in complete control. Unlike the other daily fantasy platforms where you have to set a lineup and your lineup competes against 500 other people's lineups, and if you don't get first or second place, you're really not winning anything. With PrizePicks, it's just you versus the projections available. You pick more or less on two players' stat projections, or at least two players' stat projections, and you can win up to 100 times your money. So Caleb Williams' passing yards, DeAndre Swift's rushing yards, you name it, they've got it at PrizePicks. Not just football, but basketball and soccer and hockey and tennis and so much more. So download the PrizePicks app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineups. So even if your first $5 lineup isn't correct, that's okay. They're going to give you $50 instantly when you download the app and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL at PrizePicks. Run your game. The field goal sucked, and maybe you saw it coming, maybe you didn't. You kind of just had this feeling like, are the Bears actually going to pull this off? No, but gosh, you believed, right? Just for a few seconds in there. But then when it was blocked, you almost weren't surprised. It's like, well, of course. How else is this game going to end? Is it really going to end with a game-winning field goal, or are the Packers going to find some way to win? And, of course, they do with the blocked field goal. And I've seen a lot of justifiably angry Bears fans on various social media platforms complaining relentlessly about the referees. How do you not call a flag on that blocked field goal where you're not allowed to use the long snapper as a leverage point? It's a rule that's supposed to protect the long snapper because his head is down. If you then put your weight down on him, it's a high chance of injury. You can push the guards and the tackles and everybody else as much as you want. And sometimes you end up pushing them into the long snapper, but you're not supposed to be able to push the long snapper at all. And if you look back at the play, it appears that the Green Bay Packers pushed the long snapper. So, of course, yes, the referees blew that call. NFL refereeing is terrible. How can you have a league like this where the referees are bad? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, yes, I'm not here to defend the referees, but what I am here to point to is man, complaining about the referees is the biggest waste of time that any of us can do here. I get it. It's a group that you can be mad at, and they're, it's et cetera, but first of all, generally complaining about the refs is loser talk. That's what losers do. Win the game. All right? Win the game. Find a way to win the game so that it doesn't come down to needing the referees to throw a flag, right? How about you just block? You keep them at bay. How about you properly protect your kicker so that his kick doesn't get blocked? That's step number one. Step number two, how about you don't show a glaring weakness to the Green Bay Packers that they spend all week planning on exploiting? Because that was the case in this game. There was a great article over at The Athletic. I should double check the name of the Packers reporter at The Athletic. And I don't know my Green Bay reporters very well, but I will filibuster and bring up Matt Schneidman. Anyway, Packers reporter. Who cares, right? No, but he did a great article over at The Athletic about how the Packers special teams coordinator told his team all week, hey, we're going to block one of their kicks. There's a weakness up front that we found, and we're going to block one of their kicks. We're going to do it. And even the night before the game, guys, you got to go block one of these kicks. We're going to get a blocked kick. They said there's a weakness on their guards, on their field goal team, and that we think, we being the Green Bay Packers, Rich Biscaccia saying we think we can exploit that. Clearly, this was not just a lucky play by Green Bay who happened to just get, it's just, shucks, they got a lucky one on. It's like, no, their special teams coaching staff identified that there's spots up front on the Bears field goal unit that they can attack. And in this case, it was kind of pushing Matt Pryor out of the way and creating a gap right there that they could go up and attack. But multiple Packers players were saying after the game, and even head coach Matt LaFleur said, we were going to block a kick in this game. We knew we were going to block a kick in this game. We had seen the weakness and seen the vulnerability and had been trying to attack it up to that point. So, let's start there, right? Let's start with special teams coordinator Richard Hightower. Let's start with Matt Pryor, who was, I think, the left guard on that play. There's a lot of guys that you can point important fingers to on the field goal unit that messed this up, that should have never been able to be in the hands of referees to have to make a call there. And I'm not sure that the pushing of the long snapper is the sole reason that they blocked the kick anyway. But nonetheless, how about you just do what every other team does on the majority of field goal attempts and not allow them to get in and block it? And, some people are blaming Cairo Santos for generally kicking it lower, and that's valid that he does on longer kicks. He has to kick them at a slightly lower trajectory to really kind of drive them with more distance on it. But how about head coach Matt Eberflus not trying to get any closer for that field goal attempt, but saying, you know what? The Bears had 1st and 10 at the 30 after Caleb Williams found Keenan Allen on that play, which, by the way, Caleb Williams audibled into, changed the play at the line of scrimmage, max protect shot, and made a nice throw on that play. Another really impressive moment from Caleb that I think gets a little bit overlooked in this. But you get 1st and 10 at the Packers 30 with the Packers call timeout with 35 seconds left. And you do a token handoff to Roschon Johnson just to run the clock down to 3 seconds and attempt the field goal, instead of trying to move the ball a little bit more. You had 1st and 10, you had the timeout, right? It wasn't like this was your only opportunity and you had to just take what was there because the game was running out of hand. No, the Bears could have run a couple of plays and tried to get closer. But Matt Eberflus said after the game, we didn't want to risk fumbling. We didn't want to risk turning the ball over, so we just lined up for the field goal to take it. And that contributes to it getting blocked, because if you gain 5, 10, 15 more yards on the play, that then changes the trajectory that Cairo Santos kicks it. And if you go back and watch the replay, Carl Brooks of the Packers just got a fingernail on that kick, right? This was not a clean swat block down, right, where he spikes it back at the kicker. He just barely nicks it enough to make it short. So if Cairo Santos could be 10 yards closer and aim the ball 2 degrees higher, it's probably not a block. Even if the protection up front is exactly the same, just based on if you could just aim the angle of the ball slightly higher because the kick doesn't have to go as far, you maybe avoid the block altogether. So it's the conservative decision-making from Matt Eberflus on the play before that helps then contribute to the block of the kick and therefore the loss of the game. Again, falling back on your head coach. It feels like the play before the Hail Mary, where it's yes, the last play of the game is the big important one that we're all going to remember, but the head coach's decision right before the disaster play that ends up setting up the disaster play falls back on the decision of the head coach once again. So if we want to be mad about the blocked field goal, let's be mad about Matt Eberflus not keeping the foot on the gas there. Let's be mad about Cairo Santos for not being able to kick those balls higher. Let's be mad about the blockers up front for not being able to keep the Packers at bay. And let's be mad at the special teams coach for not recognizing some of his own vulnerabilities up front that the Green Bay Packers special team staff was able to recognize. If all of those things were all right, and then the only thing that went wrong was the non-penalty on the long snapper, then we can be mad at the referees. But referees are 4th, 5th, or 6th on this list of where your anger and frustration should be directed here. The Bears have gotten screwed by the referees a couple times this season. Every team gets screwed by the referees each season. It happens all the time. And yes, we only really notice it with the Bears, and it always feels like the Packers never get screwed by the referees, but they do in other games that you're just not watching, because you're not watching every Packer game from start to finish, because why would you? And I'm not either, but I know that the Packers and every team get screwed by the referees sometime. It's not a conspiracy against the Bears where the referees only screw the Chicago Bears. They screw everybody. So it's not like it's unfair treatment that this team is receiving that other teams are not receiving. So like, let's stop complaining about the referees and put that energy more towards your overly conservative head coach who costs you games and mistakes on your special teams unit that cost you this game and erased an otherwise great Caleb Williams fourth quarter performance. That's what pisses me off more than the referees, or even like the field goal being blocked in itself doesn't bother me as much as just like the waste of a good Caleb Williams performance in whatever form that ends up coming. That's what's so frustrating to me about this game. And it makes you wonder, can they keep it up? They should have won this game. So does that mean they could beat the Vikings next week? Or maybe even the Lions after that? Or is this a one-game kind of flash in the pan and then they'll get back to same old Mad Eberflus Bears? We'll kind of look at some reasons on both sides of the aisle here and why maybe there's something somewhat in between. That's next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, FanDuel is going to get you rolling in the right direction because you can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So you place a $5 bet on anything, any sport, maybe even Bears-Vikings next week, where the Bears are 3.5-point underdogs at home. Moneyline is plus 148 for the Bears on the straight-up upset, and the over-under is set at 40.5 points. Any winning $5 bet, and they're going to give you $150 in bonus bets. You can even do that as a live bet during the game. If you get a hunch in the game, you can check out all the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets in the FanDuel Sportsbook app. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get your $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. It's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. It felt so much better to see the Chicago Bears play this well and bounce back and really, I think you could argue, outplayed the Green Bay Packers. I mean, that's not the point of what I want to talk about right now, so we don't need to debate like, okay, did they outplay the Packers? I think so, but you know, they were better on third downs, had more yards, et cetera, et cetera. But like, either at the very least played level with a 7-3 Green Bay Packers team. Like, you either outplayed them or were literally a game-winning field goal. You're neck and neck. At worst, you were neck and neck with a 7-3 football team that's going to be a playoff team. The Bears played like a playoff caliber team in this game against the Green Bay Packers. And that feels like, I mean, that matters. That's not nothing, right? They could have just kept crashing and burning and came out and scored 6 points and struggled, and the pitchforks and torches and the boo birds would have been out the whole time. Like, they made real progress in this game. But it's still a little bit hard to have the faith that, like, okay, so then they're just going to keep playing like this the rest of the year, because we've seen them play good, and then we've seen them play bad, and then we've seen them play good again, and we've seen them play bad again, and now they're playing good again. But, you know, fool me 3 times now, shame on me. So I'm a little bit torn on just how sustainable I feel like this is, because on the one hand, things were so bad against the New England Patriots that we kind of knew they weren't going to keep playing that bad, right? They were going to get better than they were against the Patriots. That level of bad just wasn't going to be sustainable for a team as talented as the Bears. Like, the Bears are not a great team, but this is not the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is not the Carolina Panthers. This team is not that bad. Like, you know, people were saying like, oh, the Bears might not win another game this season. Like, that was never true. Like, the Bears are going to win one more game, right? A minimum of one more game this season. It's a hard schedule, but like, this performance against the Packers shows you any given week, the Bears could easily win at least one more. But people say, oh, they're not going to win another game all year. No, they'll win probably a couple games, but at a minimum, at least one more game this season. But they're probably not going to play this good, as good offensively at least, as they played against the Green Bay Packers every game for the rest of the season. You know, that's just not what this Bears team is. What this Bears team is a relatively young, developing team. And a lot of times when you see these kind of younger, fresher teams, what you get is a lot of ups and downs. It's volatile. It's unpredictable, where some weeks they're going to play great and some weeks they're going to play like crap. And it's kind of hard to predict exactly when and why one week might be a good week and one week might be a bad week. And there's probably going to be more bad weeks than good weeks based on the schedule, but there are still going to be good weeks. And so it's like, is this success against the Packers sustainable? I mean, no, but it doesn't mean they're never going to play this well again either. Like the truth kind of lies somewhere in between, right? Like this game absolutely rebuilt some real confidence for Caleb Williams, for DJ Moore, for DeAndre Swift, for maybe the offensive line a little bit. Like there was progress that means something in this game. But like you get the Minnesota Vikings next week, who certainly are no powerhouse at this point in the season, but their defense with Brian Flores presents a pretty unique challenge in terms of all the overly aggressive blitzing and stuff that, like, I'm not necessarily expecting the Bears offense to look as sharp against the Vikings. They might still be able to win that game if they pick off Sam Darnold a couple times, but I'm not expecting a crisp, clean, confident step forward for the offense. I think it's going to feel like a step back. I think they're going to regress a little bit more. But that doesn't mean, oh no, the offense is totally broken again and they're never going to figure it out, because they may come back against the Lions the following week and beat the Lions. I mean, they almost beat the Lions twice last year and really played better than the Lions in both games last season. It would not stun me at all if the Bears put on kind of a surprising upset of the Detroit Lions in 2 weeks. Not because, the Bears just are all of a sudden some great team, but because they're going to do that volatile up and down thing where sometimes they'll just figure it out and it'll click, and sometimes it's messy again. And there's just going to be a lot of back and forth in both directions there. So I think they did get a real bump from like, all right, Waldron's out, Thomas Brown is in, fresh voice, hey guys, let's figure some stuff out. And I think that was a big lift this week. I don't think they're going to have quite that same lift for a second week in a row. Like the post-firing bump helped a little bit, and I think they're going to come back down a little bit. They're not going to go all the way back to Patriots bad, but they're not going to play Packers good again next week. I think the Vikings are going to stifle them a bit, and we'll have plenty of time this week to get into more specific stuff with the Vikings. I just kind of want to, when you think about it from a sustainability standpoint, like the offensive line played a little better in this game, picked up some blitzes, but I think the Vikings are going to challenge them a heck of a lot more. And, Caleb is going to make some mistakes sometimes still, and that's okay. And there's going to be times when the defense makes more mistakes, and that's okay too. Like it's not always going to be pretty. If anything, God, we should know that by now. But it doesn't have to be the end of the world, because there's another game, another week, and time for that to bounce back. And so we'll see. They certainly are capable of beating the Vikings. I think this performance against the Packers gives you a lot more confidence going into the Vikings game than we probably would have with a more distinctive loss in this game. And I think you could have even still some level of confidence against the Lions based on history, even if you lose to the Vikings as well. Like it matters how they play, not just what the result is through this process. And obviously, like the Thanksgiving game being a Thursday is going to be another tricky dynamic that goes into all this. But I just don't. I don't want us to get false hope. Like, okay, everything is fixed because Shane Waldron got fired and Thomas Brown called a good game against the Packers, so that you're going to be riding high the rest of the way out. And I also don't want us to get overly negative that then say, oh well, crap. Well, the Bears are still haven't figured it out, and they're never going to figure it out, and they're not going to win another game this season. Because no, that's not going to be the case either. As usual on the Locked On Bears podcast, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. The Bears are going to play not as good as they did against Green Bay, better than they did against the Patriots. And that might beat a Vikings team, but we'll see. And certainly we'll get a better sense of what to expect from Minnesota, who started off so hot and has cooled down a lot lately, but still finding ways to win ugly football games as the week goes on here. So you got to make sure that you hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to the Locked On Bears podcast, or on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel. That way you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Either way, thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for a second listen, don't forget to check out Locked On NFL twice daily with Tyler Rowland and Tony Wiggins in the afternoon, once in the morning with Tyler, afternoons with Tony, breaking down all the biggest NFL talk. I'll be on Tuesday morning with Tyler, as I do every single Tuesday morning on Locked On NFL, hitting all the biggest stories around the NFL. So go check that out. Come on back, make Locked On Bears your first listen once again tomorrow. In exchange, I'll give you another opportunity to bear down.